confrontation has this belief behind it that is this monster, this negative, aggressive thing. And it's not when it's done properly, but it's not done properly most of the time.
Hello. Welcome to the Revolving Change podcast. I'm one of your regular hosts, Joanna, and here with me today is our founder, Mr. Jorge Lobo.
Our regular founder.
On today's podcast, we have a very hot topic, and that is confrontation. It's one of the more elusive topics at work, and it's something that everyone wants to avoid as much as possible. Unfortunately, work is not as peachy and ideal as everyone would want it to be. Confrontation is actually a normal part of work. And there's a way on how we can actually go about that and use it to our advantage when we're managing our teams and how we're creating harmony in between working together. But before we go any further, let me just remind you that all of the tips we talk about today, as well as the discussion here today, will be available in our show notes. And we might even have cheat sheets for you to use and apply next time you deal with confrontation. Just make sure that you click on the link below. If you're already an existing core member, you should be able to just log into our learning portal. But if you're not yet part of our free core membership, just sign up and you'll have instant access to all of our show notes from the beginning of our podcast lifetime. All right. So, Jorge, before anything else, what do you have to say about confrontation?
Well,
is it a favorite?
Yeah, it is because actually we are rewriting one of the last courses on confrontation because of the echo we got. You said one very important thing on the onset, which was that there's something we don't like and people avoid, and it's true. People avoid confrontation, but people avoid confrontation for the wrong reason. They avoid confrontation because confrontation has generally the negative connotation and it has often a negative, destructive outcome. And once you learn that confrontation is a tool to manage and lead, then you realize that you want to seek confrontation if you're in control of the process, if you're in control of the emotions, if you're in control of the interaction with the people involved in a confrontation. I'm saying people because confrontation can be one-to-one, can be one-to-many, can be many-to-one. When it's many-to-one, it's tough. Okay, that's
wow.
I've been there. It's interesting. Yeah.
Many-to-one sounds like an intervention and not a confrontation.
Well, that's what you have to manage. When you know how to manage, you turn it into a constructive confrontation in the end, but you need to know how to manage all these forces coming towards you. You need to challenge them and manage them.
Okay.
So, but that's not typical. So we're not going to dwell on that. We can do it some other time because that's not the usual. They want to know how to face issues that turn into a confrontation and turn that into something positive. So we need to switch confrontation into a tool, from a weapon into a tool.
Yeah, so talking about confrontation, I think we first need to define what that is, because I believe that a lot of people misconstrue confrontation for something else. Like,
People
for example, on a
personal
note, on a personal note, for me, confrontation kind of feels like it's conflict. You know, like
it is.
For me, like if you are in conflict with someone, that requires a confrontation, or that triggers a confrontation. So, but I know also that it doesn't necessarily have to be like that. Conflict does carry a certain portion, which is it can either be burdened or tainted. It can be tainted with personal emotions when it comes to conflict, whereas confrontation can just be strictly about work, about an output, about something that you were supposed to deliver and you weren't. So let's get that sorted. What is confrontation?
Confrontation is a further degree of feedback that turns into something negative, which is conflictive. Confronting by definition means facing, right? You confront. You're going to make somebody, or you're going to enable somebody to face a situation. So, and most of the time it is not a positive. It is something which went wrong, something that needs fixing, something that needs solving, something that needs action. So confrontation and negative feedback are very often synonymous in the way they're being used, the way they're being applied. And the same as negative feedback, when feedback is negative and people are not trained, managers, leaders, and entrepreneurs are not trained to deliver it or to accept it and how to deal with it, then it becomes a confrontation. So a feedback gone out of off the rails will become a negative confrontation. Now, the rules for confrontation to make it a positive thing requires that you have agreed, surprise, surprise, expectations on how you're going to deal with each other. If I know that I have not delivered to you what you and I agreed or what I promised to deliver, you're going to have to confront me. It's not just telling me, oh, your feedback like, oh, you are missing your goal, oh, you're running behind. No, you're going to have to confront me that, listen, we had an agreement, you had to give me a commitment, and the output is not there. This is causing me this and this and this problem. What are we going to do about it? So I would say, as a summary, a one-liner, when you have feedback gone off the rails, you end up in a negative confrontation. Knowing how to deal with that in a constructive way to get to a positive resolution and outcome and resolution, that is managing well confrontation.
So, like you said, we need to learn how to manage confrontation, right? Because by default, confrontation automatically goes into the negative end of it. So,
if not trained by default in the
yeah,
perception and the belief, it shouldn't be, but it is. Yes, but it's because
it
of the
is,
lack of
but
training.
it's what
Yes.
usually happens. Yeah, but that's what's usually happened. Like in the real world, it really goes south immediately because people are not trained. The person implementing is not trained. The person receiving the confrontation is also not trained. So now that we're there, we have identified that that is a problem. How then do we learn to manage confrontation, or how do we, what are the skills I need to learn to be able to manage confrontation?
All skills touch on confrontation. I already mentioned surprise, surprise, expectations is one of them. Of course, communication. Listening skills are so fundamental, right? If I confront, you confront me on something I did not deliver, and you don't listen to what my answers are. So what's the point in confronting? You're just beating me up, right? You're not confronting me, you're beating me up.
Yeah.
Okay. So it doesn't help.
Mm.
The question technique is so fundamental. If you're going to confront me and say, well, I need to have a conversation with you because I think we have a situation that needs attention, to just set the level playing field, did we agree? And then you're going to restate what the agreement was. Yeah, we agreed that. We agreed we're going to deliver yesterday, right? And we did not deliver. Okay. So can we discuss and review the reasons, therefore, what happened that, you could not fulfill the agreement?
Yeah.
So it's still a confrontation, but it's not perceived as a confrontation because it's not aggressive, right? Confrontation has this uh, belief behind it that is this monster, this negative, aggressive thing. And it's not when it's
Yeah.
done properly, but it's not done properly most of the time. And that's why it is the belief is, oh, confrontation is like a fight. No, it is not if it's done properly. So you can confront me. You're going to make me face the fact that I made an agreement and a commitment with you that I did not fulfill. But you will give me the opportunity. That's where your listening skills come. The question was, what are the skills? So your questioning technique, your communication is very important. You're gonna probably, hopefully, display a positive, solid, nonverbal behavior. Not gonna be foaming and being aggressive and being rude in your tone and being pushy. You're gonna be not necessarily empathetic because maybe there's no reason for that or there's no room for that. But you're gonna be sympathetic. You're gonna be correct. You're gonna be open. You're going to watch my nonverbals because if you see that I'm still looking down and I'm insecure and I'm defensive, you will learn to adjust how you adjust your nonverbals, your verbals, and your communication overall. There's so many aspects to communication.
Right. So just to recap, that's expectations, listening skills, and communication, which goes to verbal and nonverbal as well. Most especially verbal and nonverbal. Right. So if you're listening today, if you
both
want to
parties.
listen, right. If you want to learn about those two things, we had a podcast about each of those three things that we've mentioned. You can easily find them in our podcast series. And okay, because I was about to ask that. I was about to ask if I only had to learn the top three or top five skills, what would they be? And you actually answered that already, which is great. So, like, okay, so you have the skills though, but let's face it, cultural personality, because I'm outspoken and I don't easily get offended. That's coming from me. But there are other people that, though I talk to them in the most gentle manner, that I believe to be a gentle manner, they still perceive me as scary because of the situation, because it's a confrontation. So, how do we manage then culture, personality, gender in
Well,
terms of
first of all, it comes down
confrontation?
to the company culture, right? If it's in the culture to respect gender, to respect culture, and to communicate well, then teaching and learning good confrontation is going to be relatively easier than if the culture is a more male dominated and not respecting culture. I mean, I've worked in 20, I think it's 24 countries in my career. I worked in 5 languages. I know that when I have to deal with confrontation in parts of Southeast Asia where you are, is completely different than we're dealing in Germany or in France or in the US or in Mexico or in Brazil. In Brazil, you can confront with a joke and a laugh and you'll be effective. In Thailand, I remember you need to really walk on eggshells not to offend somebody. So, I mean, it's so radically different that we cannot just draw a line and say this will work everywhere because there's nothing that will work everywhere. And also from
Mm,
company to company, you're going to have company culture and values which will not allow, for instance, I mean, I know from companies, of course, I'm not going to mention who they are, but where females have not a say, period. They just don't.
mm, yeah.
So confrontation in that company has a different connotation. But it comes down to
Hmm.
the culture. If you have a culture where people can do have mutual respect for culture, for I mean national culture, for gender, for generational issues are extremely important. We have a young person confronting a older person. I'm a good example. As a dinosaur, I get confronted by our young team repeatedly.
Hmm.
I don't feel offended. I feel enthused. I feel motivated because every time they confront me, or most of the time when they confront me, they're teaching me something I didn't know or something I misunderstood.
Mm,
But I confront them
yeah.
when they miss the point and they miss the boat and miss
Mm,
the
mm,
objective, right? So, but we have a culture where confrontation is part of what we do and is a positive event, so people look forward to it. When we have our feedback calls, maybe part of the feedback is a confrontation of something that we had agreed we were going to do and we didn't do.
yeah.
So,
Bones to pick.
right, bones to pick is potential absolutely confrontation, which we do in every meeting. Bones to pick, which is I'm going to voice what I'm not happy about or what I think we should have done different or what I'm dissatisfied with. We're going to discuss it, find a
Yeah.
solution, and move forward. Yeah, there you go. But we do the confrontation part at the very beginning, so it will not stress
Yeah.
people. They get scared of it. Oh, I'm going to be confronted, or I need to confront somebody. Is dealt with in a positive way, which means it sets the tone for a positive meeting, event, exchange.
Hmm.
Number three, it solves a problem up front. So this is one of the things we do also with customers. Because we do it, we try to take our own medicine as much as we can. That start with bones to pick to make it fun, to make it sound
Mm,
like it's a fun thing. But often the bone to pick
yeah.
is a huge bone and it's a very serious bone. You and I
Yeah.
had
So
internally
I
a bone
do.
to pick with our own IT situation. Well, I mean, we made fun of it,
Yeah.
but it was a serious situation we had to deal with.
It was. Yeah. So that's actually one of the things that I'm very thankful for, I guess, with revolving change, is because it is part of our culture to call something out that bothers us, to confront someone in a safe environment.
Hang on, I
So
have
where
to
both
allow me to come in.
parties,
Allow me to come in. Allow me to come in. You just said something very important, but I think it's going to be lost in the words. We confront something. Then you said someone. It's something. We need to focus on the task. We need to focus on the problem. You first said
yeah,
confront the situation, and then we went on to person. And that is the way actually the process should work. But I don't want it to just be lost in the words you said. I think I want to highlight what
for
you said,
sure.
which was very important. We should
Hmm.
always confront first the situation, the facts, the issue,
Hmm.
the problem,
Hmm.
not the
Hmm.
person. If at the end the
True.
person
Yeah.
plays a role because it missed the boat, didn't check if the website was up, or slept on something, or whatever is the overlooked. We can and we should. But when we start
Mm-hmm.
confronting facts and situations first, we take away a lot of the emotion
Mm-hmm.
and make a confrontation more factual
Mm,
and probably,
mm-hmm.
most likely, more productive. So that point you made was very
That's
important. I
true.
just wanted to highlight it.
Okay. Yeah. No, that's absolutely important because I even call myself, I'm like, I'm more solutions oriented. Although I am more solutions oriented, there are still some systemic biases that have been ingrained within me all throughout the years of working and the years of like experiences that I don't notice about myself. So you pointing that out is actually helpful for me. So why don't we move on to practical tips now here? Like, how do we go about confronting someone? Let's just say, for example,
Mm-hmm.
I know this, I've been trained in feedback, I've been trained in listening, I've been trained with perception management, all of these skills in varying degrees, not
Yeah.
perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Would you say that one person would be then equipped to start managing confrontations?
Sure. And perfect doesn't exist, so you'll never be perfect, right?
Of course.
And as
Yeah.
you work on
In
what
varying
once,
degrees.
yeah, if you work on a particular skill and you work hard on that skill, well, that skill is going to
Mm-hmm.
advance and become stronger.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what's going to happen that you're going to be equal, you're going to still be as good as you are in your weakest skill, right? Because it's a chain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So the weakest link is going to
Yeah.
determine how good you're going to be. So we need to
Mm-hmm.
train, maintain, nurture all skills. It's a
Right.
never-ending
But
job.
you do,
Yeah,
yeah. Reality is though, you can't wait until you have to, because in
no,
the real world, you can't hold off
of course
confrontation.
not.
You
Of
can't go
course
like,
not.
oh my gosh, wait, I'm not trained with perception management yet. I won't
Well, and one of
to
the
deal with
cheat
this.
sheets we want to put together, we're talking about what the tools are. So if you're
Yeah.
gonna have the expectations, and you can go through the cheat sheet and see what the elements are. Expectations is one. Communication, two-way communication, nonverbal communication. Well, be aware. If you're gonna go into confrontation, set the scenario. A simple thing. If you're gonna have a confrontation, it's about a tough situation. Make sure you're on a one-on-one. Make sure you have undivided attention from each other. If it's two people or the people
Mm-hmm.
involved, make sure there are no
Mm-hmm.
disruptions. Go to an office or close the door, turn your phone off or put it face down silent, put it in a drawer. Show perception management. Give the perception that you are giving full attention. Prepare your notepad if you're going to take notes or whatever it is what you're going to do, or use a flip chart. Make it, give it the importance it deserves. If I have an important confrontation and I deal with it as if, well, yeah, I need to call my wife for the shopping for tomorrow, and I want to know what the veterinary said about my canary bird that's got diarrhea. No, I need to focus on what I'm doing, and I need to focus on the attention of the person I'm confronting or being confronted by. So
Mm-hmm.
yes, anybody, the degree of training you've had will determine how good you are at what you're doing, but you can do it. And the more you do it, the
Mm-hmm.
better you're going to get at it. It's like all the other skills, right? You have the cheat sheet, you have the different skills, you prepare them, you check
Yeah.
maybe for understanding when you start a confrontation, and go through the
Mm-hmm.
different points with the person you're going to confront. Say, let's agree what we want to do here. We want to do this, we want to do it this way, we want to ensure. I recommend to have the three cards: the green card, yellow card, and red card. Um,
Mm-hmm.
the green card means is on all three cards on the table. You put on top the one that is everything is going okay. You have it in green. If you start feeling uncomfortable with something, put the yellow up and let the other person understand that something is, so you can stop the conversation and say, well, what's bothering you? Let's deal with that. Or red, if you're
Mm-hmm.
offended by something that's being said, put the red card on top and say, hey, this is off. I don't accept you treat me like this. I don't accept you say what you just said. I don't want you involving my family, or what have you, whatever has been said. So the person has, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say that. It escaped, and let's accept my apology, and then we go back to green. These are all tools
Mm-hmm.
that we can, I'm happy to share, but you need to prepare yourself and use the skills that you
Yeah.
got. Are you perfect? No. Are
Mm-hmm.
you going to be a champion at
Of
it?
course not.
Maybe one day, but the more you use
Mm-hmm.
it, the better you're going to get.
Yeah. So what are basic guidelines if you are to start confronting? Let's just say you are the person that's about to confront someone about something, what's a basic guideline? Do you have any rules or
Yeah.
a
First
few?
guideline. First guideline is prepare.
Mhm,
Preparation, preparation, preparation. Don't go into confrontation ad hoc between a door and another door, between a meeting and another meeting. Hey, by the way, I need to talk to you, and then confront. Don't do it. It's going to go astray.
mhm,
It's going to go wrong. It's going to break more than it's going to
mhm,
fix.
mhm,
Sometimes it won't, but you're taking a risk. If it's serious, devote the time and effort to something that is serious. Prepare it. Preparing it means, what is the fact, not the person, the fact I want to confront? What are the underlying facts supporting my conclusive fact that I'm confronting? Put your data together. Have your stuff ready. Take away the emotion, maybe make it factual, and then go through the checklist. How about the expectations? How about perception management? How about communication one-to-way? How about my feedback technique? I've been trained in feedback because as I confront, I'll be giving feedback because I'm confronting a
mhm,
deviation, and maybe the person gives
mhm,
me a BS answer, and I need to give feedback that is BS, and maybe that's not the real reason why things went wrong. So I need to use my
mhm,
feedback skills, but
mhm,
I can prepare that. I can make a scenario. It's like when you have a very difficult negotiation. Well, that we did in our negotiation course program. You have a difficult negotiation. Well, you play all the different scenarios, all the what ifs. Did you cover them all? Hopefully, but it can happen that we didn't. But if we didn't, we have enough attention and energy and time to focus on the one that we didn't, because all the ones we did, we
mhm.
have stored them, we have prepared them, we know what to do. Now, if we didn't prepare
Okay.
nothing, the energy we're going to need and the effort it's going to take is going to be huge, and the probability it's going to go wrong, and this applies to confrontation the same
Mhm.
way, is huge. So preparation is of the
Okay.
essence.
So only prepare. If there's one guideline, if you're going to initiate a confrontation, it's to prepare.
Make it a rule. Make it a rule. Always prepare,
Mm.
because it becomes
Okay.
part of your DNA. It becomes part of who you are and how
Mm.
you deal with people. And the key is, once you start preparing and dealing with confrontation in a constructive way, which ends in a positive
Yeah.
note, your
Hmm.
recipient is going to start seeing that confrontation is not negative. Your recipient is going to start losing the fear of confrontation. Then confrontation becomes a normal tool on how you all run a business.
Okay. Now let's go to the other side. What if you're the one receiving the confrontation?
Focus more than anything else on the question technique, raise questions. Maybe if the situation and the person that is confronting you allows you, raise a question like, can we agree on how we're going to go about doing this? Do you have particular ways you prefer to do this? Because I feel maybe unease, I feel anxious, or express your concern. Now, that is assuming that the culture of the company you're working with will allow for that, right? Because I've seen, uh, before we trained them, after we had training with them, and they've been our clients for many years, that was not the case anymore. But when we started, people reacting like, well, if you're anxious, you got a problem, you have to solve it. That's your problem if you're anxious. Let's get on with business. So it's like a slap in the face. It's not very helpful.
Okay. So how does one go about a question technique? If you were the recipient of the confrontation, how would you go about using the question technique?
Well, first of all, I ask for permission. May I ask you a few questions before we start?
Mm, mm,
Ask for permission first, because once you ask for permission and you
mm,
were granted the permission, you can ask all the questions you want. And if the answer is no, you may not ask any questions. Well, what can I say? What you should do? You're not in a good place. I'm not sure is
mhm,
you want to stay there for very long unless that changes. Um, so the first thing is you ask for permission. Once you ask for permission, of
okay.
course, ideally, you, like everything else, you prepared your questions, right? But questions would be such as,
Mhm,
um, what is this process that we're going to go through? What is the objective, and what are the steps you want to go through? So, is the objective to fire me? It's virtually speaking, right? In
mhm,
my own mind, is the objective to fire me and get rid of me? Because if it's so, we can make it very easy and quick and painless.
mhm,
Or is it to crucify me and make me bleed and make me suffer? Or is it
mhm,
to find a solution that will prevent this of happening again? So Through your questions, you want to lead the person you're speaking with to what is the outcome you expect. Once you know what the outcome is, what are the particular, not are there, what are they? So ask specific questions, not like, are there? And the answer is no, then you're stuck, right? So what are they? Assume
Mm-hmm.
there are. What are the steps we're going to follow in this process? So
Okay.
be willing and ready to have a sparring conversation where people will ask you, well, why are you asking all these questions? Because it will be unusual. Another
Mm-hmm.
thing you may want to ask about is predictable consequences to understand the culture. But here I'm getting into an area where hopefully this is something you're already engaged and learned before this confrontation. Ideally, you're in a company where many of these questions could have been asked already, particularly predictable consequences. What happens when you miss a goal, when you miss what kind of goal, when a mistake happens. So understanding the culture of the company is extremely important.
Okay, so yeah, those are the tips. For if you're the one implementing the confrontation, prepare. If you are the one receiving the confrontation, ask, use a question technique, but first ask questions.
Prepare also, right? You
Sorry,
can
but
prepare
first
yourself
ask
also, right?
permission.
Yes.
Yeah, but if it's spontaneous, you have to be like, right.
If it's spontaneous, chances are
So
it's going to
yeah.
go wrong, but yeah.
Oh, for sure. All right, so let's move on to the segment, which is one of my favorites. Every time we have our podcast, it's answering questions from real people in real life. Okay, so the first question we have here today is, I want to learn how to remain calm during conflict or confrontation. Hello, I have recently been promoted to a management role in my organization, but I have always had a bit of an issue with confronting people. I will make a plan in my head of what I want to say and do, but as soon as the time comes, my heart starts beating fast and I struggle to speak or think clearly. I can only link this issue to potentially when I was growing up and see my mother with an abusive partner. I'm not saying I want to be going around and causing fights for the fun of it. I just want to be able to remain calm and composed in situations where I'm being confronted or I need to confront an individual. I have always been a very laid back guy, so it's not generally in my nature to confront someone unless really necessary. This is even more important now that I'm responsible for others in the workplace. I don't want my team to think I'm weak and they can do what they want. I also would not want other departments to take advantage of my laid back nature and push workloads across. Any help and or advice on this will be greatly appreciated.
I think the first thing that jumps in my ears from what I heard is that this person sees confrontation as something negative. So it is in the
Yeah.
box of the majority that confrontation is something negative. Because if it
Mhm.
wasn't negative, we wouldn't get all this butterflies in the stomach would not freeze.
Yeah,
So my
for
advice
sure.
is make the decision that you want to turn confrontation into something positive and constructive. That's point number one. Start shifting your mindset. Now, there is a
Mm.
number of tools, whether it's with breathing, and we have a coach, a dear friend, which is expert in that. There's some Chinese tool techniques. I mean, one that works for me is you pull here when you're about to blow your stack, and you pull and pull long from both,
Mhm.
and then you pressure will go down. So it works for me.
Mm.
I'm not pretending to be
Mm.
an expert in that. Staying serious. For this person, I'd say start by working your mindset that confrontation is a tool you're going to learn to use. Then go through the points that we discussed earlier. What are the things I need to do?
Mhm.
Take
Mhm.
one person that you deal with, which you need to confront, but that you feel comfortable with. Maybe it's a peer, and you want to practice with a peer, and do it. Go through it.
Mm.
Do the expectations with this peer. Deal with nonverbal, verbal communication. Deal with listening skills. In, interrupt
Mm.
each other to test how to confront the lack of listening skills. Make a few
Mm.
mistakes, make it go wrong in this peer training testing exercise. Once you've done
Okay.
that and you can see that you can do it, because you're going to see you can do it, there's no question about it in my mind. You just don't realize yet you can do it. you will discover that you can. The next thing is
Mm-hmm.
deal with your immediate reports, your team, explain to them what you want to do. Make it theirs
Mm-hmm.
as much as it is yours. Discuss with them. Confrontation is a tool. Do the same thing I just said, or hire us to do it with you. Do the same thing I
Mm-hmm.
just said. Explain to them confrontation is a positive, constructive tool we're going to use in the future. We don't want to be anxious. We don't want to be nervous. We don't want to be scared. We want to be able to focus on learn, maybe use what we
Mm-hmm.
use, which is pick a bone. Do you have any bones to pick? Let's pick the bones at the beginning of the meetings. Or let's call
Yeah.
it the variance. In some companies, they decided to call it because the bone is too colloquial, they call it the variance. Is there any variance, which means we
Mm-hmm.
planned something, we did less or different? So let's deal with the variance. Any variances we need to address. So people start raising what the
Okay.
variances are, of right? So um, that would be the first step. So develop, work on your mindset, work with a peer and test yourself and test the skills and practice. One, two, as many times as you
Mm-hmm.
think is necessary. Then introduce it to your team and get your team on board the same way you did with your peer. You can do a test. You can even, take one or two or the whole team, depending on how big your team is, of course. If it's a large, very large team, it's going to be hard, but it's a smaller team, bring them in a room and say, we're going to do a test today. It's training. It's not for real. And use a hypothetical example of the confrontation. Nothing real, nothing from the job. Something like, I asked you to paint my bicycle green, you painted yellow, what happened? Something which is totally utopic, but it will help everybody trying the skills. Be the trainer the leaders and managers need to be. You need to be the trainer. You need to be the example, the role model of your own people. You need to lead by example. Show them. And once you got in your team,
Mm-hmm.
it will percolate outside. It's going to be much easier for you to go, to upper management, to go to your peers, to go to other departments. Because this person also hinted something that because he doesn't confront, he gets loaded with additional work. That's a good example of punishing performance. You're good at what you do, so you get more, and those are not good.
Mm-hmm.
Get relief. So confrontation is a means to solve that. Absolutely is.
Yeah.
Once you know how to properly confront. I hope that helps.
Okay. Nice. Okay. So our second question for today, it goes, how do I become stronger in confrontation? Today, one of my coworkers yelled at me. I talked it out later with the assistant manager, who I'm mostly cool with. He said that I shouldn't take it too hard, that my coworker is just massively overworked. And he's very close to his vacation, so he blows up easily. Now, I am not angry with him, but I couldn't even talk back. I felt horrible for hours and constantly had to keep my tears in, and this always happens. Every time I'm in an emotional trouble or I have a fight with someone, I have to fight so hard to not cry. There is, of course, there is, of course, nothing wrong with crying and letting some emotions out, but I can't start bawling my eyes out every time someone gets angry and confrontational with me, especially at work. How can I improve that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, the problem here is, of course, the responsible manager and leader. Well, lack of leadership, obviously, and poor managerial skills. Because this person should not just justify the ill behavior of somebody and take the other person.
Mm,
Well, just
yeah.
take it because
Mm,
uh, that's not.
because they're
It
not in
doesn't
a
work.
good mood.
But maybe
No.
this manager or leader, this person um, is one that came out. Maybe there's several of them in this department that feel the same way as this person does. This is the only one that
Hmm.
spoke up. So I think the first thing is to find a way to get the assistant manager to take action. That person is responsible, and maybe start putting the gentle pressure on, like, I ain't taking this, and share the pain, share the way you're feeling with this manager, the way you're feeling. This is making me feel terrible. It's affecting my productivity. It's affecting my work, and
Hmm.
um, and it needs a resolution, which is not in me. It is in the other person. So either you're going to have to do it, or I'm going to have to do it. And I don't have the means to do it, so I'm going to have to move if you don't fix that. Now, the risk is that if the manager in charge is not competent enough, doesn't have the courage, the skill, the vision, and all the other requirements to fulfill in order to be able to solve it, then unfortunately this person is out of luck. I hate saying this, but there is not much I can say or help this person unless we can work with the assistant manager that is in charge of the other person and confront and solve it. Because this person alone confronting a person without the authority and without, I mean, it would be great if this person develops the skill and the courage to time out the other person, say, hey, I'm not taking this tone of you, don't raise your voice, let's agree on expectations. But she doesn't have, or he doesn't have the grounds to do that unless he's got the support of management. Because at that level, setting agreeing expectations, you need managerial support. You need the responsible person to stand behind that. And that is difficult unless that is available.
Yeah.
So I'm afraid I don't have a real nugget to give.
Yeah, it's really hard. But this person's like, they get overwhelmed with emotions. But I do get this person, like, you get yelled at. You're just doing something, you get yelled at. I'm like, what? You get startled. So,
well, I mean,
that's absolutely unfortunate.
I'm not proud of it to admit that was pretty much me many, many years ago. I was very ruthless and I was very vocal and very harsh. And many people suffered with my management style, extremely aggressive. And I'm not proud of that. I have lots of regrets on how I managed in many of those situations with many of the people that deserve better. So, mea culpa on that. It's my, but I didn't know what I didn't know. Even though I was a coach and I was a mentor, I was not applying the medicine to myself. I was running the business with our partners. Actually, Mark, my founding and best friend and founding partner with business coaching, he's the one that said it. I'm the worst. You're the worst shouter I ever met, quote unquote. Still haunts me. I still hear him. You have toes this long, because he could not even get close to me with criticism, and I would just fly off the handle. So I was terrible, absolutely terrible. So I've improved. I've improved, and I'm still working on it. But so it's difficult because I can imagine people that were working on my team would have a hard time confronting me because I was that vocal person, right? And I was that, loud and aggressive. So it was very difficult. So.
Yeah, understandable. True. Okay. Yeah.
That was it.
So we hope, that was it. So we hope everyone listening today was able to get a little glimpse of confrontation. Again, this is just a tip of the iceberg. We're going to circle back to confrontation in our future podcast. So if you have certain things that you want to discuss or questions that you have about confrontation, please send us a message, comment below, or send us an email, because this podcast is made especially for you. We want to hear your voice. All right, so that is it for today. This has been Revolving Change, your partner in implementing lasting measurable change in your career and business. Have a good day.
Bye-bye.